Today, we will begin a 21-part series on Mindfulness Dialogue. In this series, we will delve more deeply into the theory and practice of Mindfulness Dialogue, a method that we use and teach here on this channel, and that we believe is critical to our global efforts to become a we. Today, we focus on the skill we are calling making space. If you stick around till the end, join us in our regular bonus segment where we feature marvelous examples of a new global we sent in by viewers like you. So, let's begin. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Every morning the world is created. Under the orange sticks of the sun, the heaped ashes of the night turn into leaves again and fasten themselves to the highest branches. And the ponds appear, like black cloth on which are painted islands of summer lilies. If it is your nature to be happy, you will swim away along the soft trails for hours, your imagination alighting everywhere. And if your spirit carries within it the thorn that is heavier than lead, if it's all you can do to keep on trudging, there is still somewhere deep within you a beast shouting that the earth is exactly what it wanted. Each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer heard and answered lavishly every morning, whether or not you have ever dared to be happy. Whether or not you have ever dared to pray. I believe we live in two worlds, the real world and an illusory world of our own making. This great poem that I just read by Mary Oliver speaks about these two worlds and how it is so easy to get caught in the snares of worry and judgment, the thorn that is heavier than lead. But there is still somewhere deep inside you a beast shouting that the earth, the world, the real world, is exactly what it wanted. For the real world is essentially a living reality, an interconnected, symbiotic, emerging life that holds and informs everything, from the galaxies to you and me, a world of interbeing. We've all experienced this world at some time in our lives, certainly as children, though perhaps also when we fell in love or became a parent. It's the world that breaks in on our seriousness, filling us with the unexpected joy of a sunrise or a spring flower. Though it's also the world that reveals itself to us when things fall apart and we remember what's really important and who we really are.
The other world is really an illusory world that is born out of our limited understanding, that believes it is made up of separate individuals competing for survival in a random universe. Unfortunately, this illusory world of separateness and struggle has come to dominate and is now the foundation for society, particularly our modern society. But this illusion is generating increasing anxiety, which manifests in the many ways we know, from injustice and violence to disease at every level of our lives. Now, this illusory world, with its insistent and unsustainable assumptions about growth and control, threatens to destroy us. So experiencing the real world again and learning how to live in this world has to be our essential and primary goal. This is actually a very radical approach to the challenges we face today. And it will take commitment and time. But first of all, it will take space. We will have to begin this critical work by making space in the busy lives that the illusory world has created for us. a kind of experimental space where we can learn how to see and live differently. In doing this, we are actually following an ancient, well-worn path taken by many before us. For in every culture from the earliest times, there have been those who have committed themselves to making space like this. The monastic tradition, which was a part of many religions, was one such form that consisted essentially of making space, internally and externally, in order to stay in touch with a deeper awareness of the real world that the developing culture of control threatened to suppress. It made this space by stepping away from the culture of the day in order to be able to retain and cultivate what was essential. This is exactly what we need to do today.
And that essentially is what this project is about. Making space to help us create a new we and a new world founded on this reality of interconnectedness and interbeing. Making space literally means stepping out of the systems that the culture has devised as the norm. But more important, it means stepping out of the thinking and the underpinning assumptions that have become internalized in the culture's structures. Hence the importance of the various practices of quieting the mind and focusing attention in order to see and hear more clearly. That's what we want to do in this first stage of our new We project. But making space requires intention and decision and commitment. In the increasingly busy world of our culture, it means literally setting aside and coming aside. You don't have to go to the wilderness or the desert like the monks of old, but you can go for a walk. You don't have to build a monastery, but you do have to create a quiet corner where you can step aside for a while. You don't have to rise in the early hours to chant prayers, but you do have to take a few moments every day when you can deliberately pay attention. And you don't have to live by a monastic bell, but you do have to create your own simple rituals that will remind you of your intention when you inevitably forget.
Once again, Mary Oliver captures a simple but essential idea. She says, "You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things." Making space like this in order to allow the world to offer itself to your imagination and to remind you again of your place in the family of things is a critical part of the great work of our time. Danny's old mentor, Thomas Berry, used to say that every generation has its great work to do. Like democracy with the ancient Greeks, like discovery for the ancient explorers, like amazing art for the people of the Renaissance, and so on. The great work of our time is about returning to the real world and our true self, creating a new we. Making space is the first step on this journey back to a truer world, a truer self, and a truer way of living that we all know is still there, no matter how faded in our collective memory.
So that's our theme for today. It's an aspect clearly of mindfulness dialogue approach that we're advocating for. So in this second segment, we want to give you a little sense of what this mindfulness dialogue looks like by modeling between Carlos and myself initially, and later with other guests as this unfolds. And so we will try that in this second segment. We've described mindfulness dialogue already as deeper and more skillful interaction with others, certainly, but also with yourself and the world we share. We've also suggested that we need deeper interaction more than anything else today in order to address our present challenges and learn to live more creatively in our increasingly complex world. The three stages of the mindfulness dialogue process are connecting, exploring, and discovering. The focus of these first weeks of our program will be connecting, various aspects of connecting. And today's focus is about making space. So let's see if we can engage a little bit by first connecting through a mindfulness exercise and a little sharing from the deeper place that this mindfulness exercise hopefully creates for us. So Carlos and all of you out there, let me invite you to position yourself comfortably, relaxed certainly, but also alert. Your back straight, your hands in your lap, your feet on the ground. And close your eyes if it helps, or soften your gaze if you know what I mean. It will help you to go to a deeper place and a truer self, and take 3 deep breaths. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Now breathe normally. If you notice any place of tension in your body, breathe into that place and breathe out the tension as you breathe out your breath. Follow your breath. And when you notice distracting things, and they're always there, just notice them and let them go. And in your mind, softly say the theme of this reflection today, making space. Repeat the words a couple of times, almost like a mantra. Follow your breath, as I said, as it moves in and out. See if you can find a gentle rhythm. When thoughts arise, as they always do, simply notice them and let them go. Think of them as clouds passing in a clear blue sky. You are the clear blue sky. Let's stay with that for just a few moments. I will hold the time. Now gently return to the present moment, to your body, to the place where you are. And when you're ready, if your eyes were closed, open your eyes. Feel the connection to the space, the presence, the calmness that surrounds you. And know that you can do this at any time. Make space like this at any time during the day.
So, what did that feel like? Perhaps a little strange or even awkward if you haven't done this before. Maybe it felt good, calming, focusing. So what did you experience? What moved you? We will share some of the thoughts and emotions that came to us this morning, just to show you how normal this is and how easy it is. So let's share with each other, Danny, what came to us during this time.
Well, like you, I was, anxious about creating our first episode here, recording and so on. So there was lots of things going on still in my mind. But as soon as I started, even though I was leading this, as soon as I started to breathe deliberately, it was like I made a little bit of space inside of myself, as it were. That's what it felt like. I was making a little bit of space. I've been meditating like this for most of my life. And yet I'm still wonderfully astonished at how I can step aside and make that space, even if it's only for a moment. It's so powerful. That was the first thing that came up for me. What about you, Carlos?
What came up for me was the siren that I keep hearing outside my window, and it's intermittent, and maybe by the time this YouTube video comes out, it'll be edited out, hopefully, but it was I found it a little bit hard to enter this space with that distraction, but little by little, with your guidance, with intention to make this space and becoming aware of these distractions, just letting them go, it got easier. I noticed that it seems impossible in the beginning, but then with the exercise and with the intention, it seems to be actually quite easy.
Well, in fact, here's a thought too that as you were speaking hit me, that of course we're distracted 100 times, and that will be the case for everyone that's participating in this. But mindfulness is not so much being not distracted, because that's not possible, but constantly returning. It's almost like the return itself is the mindfulness. And making that little space is a constant process, because the world is full of distractions. And in particular, as we noted, our modern illusory world keeps us busy, keeps us moving, keeps us running around, so that it's almost impossible just to find space. So the practice, while it might feel frustrating at first, I think you get used to the fact that, it's just kind of coming back. I breathe, it's natural, I get distracted, I come back. That's the same thing in every interaction and in every encounter and in every conversation. And so to be able to practice it offline, so to speak, like this, I find it really helpful. I hope that makes sense. And I hope it makes sense to people who are listening. I've, as I said, done a lot of mindfulness myself over the years. I know that people find it hard because it feels like almost overwhelming, all the distractions. And so to be able to share about it a little bit like this, like we're doing, I think helps. It certainly encourages me, even at this stage of my life, to keep on trying it. And I hope it does the same for you and for others who are listening. Okay. Well, that gives you we're not going to spend too much time on each of these stages of mindfulness dialogue, but it gives you a taste, hopefully, of that this is natural and normal and difficult and also helpful. That's how we connect, by going to a deeper place in ourselves and sharing from that place. And we've created, we would hope, perhaps a little bit of a container where we might go to the next stage of our mindfulness dialogue, which is exploring. We want to explore the theme. Our theme is making space, and why it's important, how we can do it, so on. So to help us with this stage of our mindfulness dialogue, we will use a catalyst, what we call a catalyst, something that inspires and directs us, maybe even gives us a hint of what the theme is about and some of the different layers. And we often, mostly, use a poem for that, because we can listen to it and maybe a word or a phrase touches us, and we can begin to explore the theme indirectly, as it were. You'll see what I mean as we continue. So we're going to use Mary Oliver's poem, Wild Geese, that Carlos just read, and it'll serve this purpose. So let's listen again, and then Carlos and I will explore what it says about making space, and invite you to do the same. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. Wonderful poem, isn't it? So perhaps a word or a phrase caught your attention. Let's see what came up for Carlos and myself and where it takes us in this exploring stage of mindfulness dialogue. So Carlos, was there a word or a phrase that grabbed you?
Yeah, actually, the image of walking on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting that you don't have to do that, and that kind of reminds me of, what I did during the pandemic year. I actually, for whatever reasons, decided that the most important thing I could possibly do is create a space for introspection. And so my wife and I put together a labyrinth in our backyard. It's a 50-foot diameter labyrinth that's a copy of the Chartres Cathedral labyrinth in France. Anyway, that kind of reminds me of what this is about. It's a space that allows us to go regularly, invite the community to go regularly, and take moments of introspection, to be calm, to take the time, to make the intention to go in. And it's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful addition to our family. That's where the Mary Oliver poem took me this morning.
And, paying attention, as you're saying, what hit me was that last piece of the poem, whoever you are, no matter how lonely. Whew. One of the things I've experienced during this pandemic is the isolation and how it does feed the sense of being cut off and polarized loneliness in that sense. I can imagine that we've been impacted by this pandemic in so many ways that we haven't yet come to realize. But still, you were mentioning something like the labyrinth. It's a more elaborate way. Even making a little corner for yourself is a way to make such space so that you can see how the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese. It calls to you like the trees or the grasses, or calls to you like a child smiling or a sun rising. It's like we're surrounded by so much that calls to our imagination and widens our sense of, and deepens our sense of connectedness, interbeing. So it's like making that little simple space, or a more elaborate one, like a labyrinth, whatever it is, so that we can allow the world to call to our imagination, as it does, over and over, announcing your place in a family of things, in the great we. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, you're sharing kind of just reinforced for me a couple of things. The idea that you don't have to create a labyrinth. That's just a tool. But the gift of intentionality is there all the time, everywhere. And Mary Oliver points out that the world is calling you to giving you this gift. And all you have to do is basically accept it and enter into it. It doesn't have to be a labyrinth. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It's just a walk in the woods, a focus on the breath can really be the place where this gift becomes real. So that's what I got from your sharing.
And just to sort of tag on to that, you're so right. It doesn't have to be elaborate, like a labyrinth, but it does have to be something. We are symbolic animals. We do need ritual, structured time or space, no matter how simple. As I said, a little corner, but the consistency of every day, or a walk in the woods, whatever it is, go out with your dog, go sit on a chair, but to take that time, to make that space deliberately in order to allow the world of interconnectedness, the family of things, to call to us. Wow, that was interesting. It's always fascinating to me, Carlos, how even sitting like this across Zoom, and it's not the best of conditions for a mindfulness dialogue, it does happen. If we can connect as we did, and then use something like a catalyst, like a poem, to call us into an exploration. Thank you. I enjoyed that.
Thank you, Danny. Finally, we want to discover what insights may have been generated through this exploration process. When we share like this without judgment or insistence, but simply to understand each other, something strange seems to happen. It's a kind of awakening. The reason is that when we don't have to defend our positions but can simply share them, this loosens our tendency to insist on our opinion or to refute or deny the perspective of another. In that space, something new is generated, a small shift, a small insight. And often what is generated is also shared. So what we do here is simply listen for this and give voice to it. Thereby we build something new together, no matter how little. And so let's see then what has begun to emerge for us in this mindfulness dialogue this morning. Danny, what's emerged for us, do you think, today?
Well, again, as I said, I've done this often, and yet there's something always wonderfully refreshing. What hit me there, I hadn't quite thought of it before, was making space. Isn't just physically making space. It is also, as we were saying earlier, to making internal space. But in doing so, I also find myself making space for you. That might sound rather patronizing, but I often feel that, maybe I don't make space for others. I think I'm present to them. I think I'm making space, but really I'm constantly listening for what, reinforces my own opinion or whatever. So much of our conversation is like that. But this sort of slows, it seemed to me, things down in a way too. And maybe using a poem like this as a catalyst helped me really be present to you and to the emerging ideas that came up. And one last little thought on that too is when we did that, even this time, it's like something new. Maybe it's ancient and new, I don't know, but it's certainly something new that's being born every time. It's a little bit like a dance when we're interacting together. It's like the dance. There's new movements kind of emerge. We may know all the steps, we may be familiar with each other, but there's something else that's happening. It's almost like the dance, the music dances us. And I got a little feeling of that too, that in real conversation and real mindfulness dialogue, something new is born. In fact, the word dialogue comes from the Greek dia, which means through, and logos, which is meaning. It's almost like when we interact like this, something new emerges. That's what kind of I felt a little hint of in this morning.
I'm thinking as you're talking is, the intention of this YouTube channel, which is to make space for all of us, for each other, to make space for each other. So we're being intentional by gathering here regularly as these episodes progress, but we're also making space in our lives, taking time out of our busy lives to be here, to be present. And we're also making space to hear each other out. We're probably not going to be agreeing with each other as we move forward, but we're allowing each other to be present to the other. We're making space for each other. So it's connected to what this channel is all about, really. It is about making a global space for a global we.
So maybe there's a taste of the discovering stage of mindfulness dialogue. We connected with the mindfulness exercise. We explored with the catalyst of Mary Oliver's poem. We explored the theme of making space. And then we listened for what was generated by our interactions. And maybe you had a little bit of this experience where you are today. There's clearly many things we can do to make this space throughout the day. Certainly having the intention to do so is a good place to start. And then turning this intention into a regular practice is another thing. Creating a physical space clearly helps. Think of it like the safe hiding place you used to create as a child, under the stairwell or in the backyard. A final thought is this: when we cultivate something, a plant, an idea, it grows. If we cultivate this kind of space in our daily lives, It will grow for us, and I would imagine in us. If you'd like to take this a little further, check out our website under the Mindfulness Dialogue 21-day program. The first reflection is called Making Space, and the others we will follow up with as we proceed with our episodes. So there you have it.
Now we come to our regular bonus segment, where we feature video clips sent in by folks to showcase aspects of this new global we. We invite you to share your clips by emailing it to info@anewglobalwe.com. In the clip, make sure to tell us your name, your location, along with your contribution.
And so the first featured segment we're calling Community Spirit. This is our community mail. So we'll share from these regularly and send your email to, as Carlos said, info@anewglobalwe.com.
This next segment is called Kindred Spirits. Introduce yourselves. This is a growing community. We want to see you and hear from you. Answer the question, why are you a kindred spirit?
And here's another little segment. We're calling it Spirit Moves. Do you have new initial insights, possibilities, inspirations from watching this channel already? Tell us about them.
And next we want to hear from the free spirits. These are your creatives. Show us your poetry, your spoken word, your visual arts, your performing arts. Send us a clip. These are intended to help us all reach further into what it means to be a we.
Hi, my name is Claudine Nash. I'm a poet and a psychologist who uses poetry as a tool for healing and connection. I usually write a lot about the types of human emotional experiences that we all can connect to, whether it be loss or longing or doubt. But in the wake of the division that we experienced following the 2016 election, I found myself putting together a collection of poems about connection itself. Connection to each other, to the natural world, to our authentic selves. I'd like to read one of those poems for you today. It's one about our interconnectedness and the healing that we can start experiencing when we acknowledge it. It's called Sitting Zazen on the Downtown 4 Train. Wherever you are in your small corner, there's a train rolling through you, carrying all the beings who have ever loved the dull colors of something or someone to life. And though the walls of your room may be worn and thick with neglect, if you stretch this moment so thin that the enemy in your head can't whisper, you may feel the cars of this train speed through all the empty stations you have ever known. So much so that when you glance at the strangers who pass through this dim and icy morning, the deepest tints and hues within you start to vibrate. You detect the secret sound the world makes when it speaks all its languages at once. Thank you.
And yet a further segment we're calling Distilled Spirits or Spirit Warriors. Tell us how you're applying mindfulness dialogue, its principles and practices to your local project, organization, communities, even family.
Next we have spirit rituals. Tell us about rituals you have discovered to help you make space and be more present. Hi, this is Carlos again. I'm here in front of the labyrinth that we talked about in today's video. I thought you'd enjoy taking a tour of this space that we've created to give people the space for ritual. This is a new sign that we just installed. It welcomes the community that's walking by. And we hope that anyone that feels inclined will come and use this space. Let me give you a tour. So here's the space. It's in the backyard of the church's manse. This is the manse of the church where we live. My wife is the pastor of the Bloomfield Presbyterian Church in the Green. This is the green. Anyone's welcome to come use this space. So, to get to it, you have to walk down the driveway. And we come to the entrance, which is today it's decorated with fall. And that decoration was in preparation for a concert that we held here a week ago in this space. We welcomed the community, and we had 3 wonderful singers in the middle of the labyrinth with chairs all around, socially distanced, to make a space for the community. So here's the entrance to the labyrinth. It's an exact replica of the Chartres Cathedral in France. It's 50 feet in diameter. It takes about 30 minutes to walk the labyrinth to the center, and then another 30 to walk it out. We hope people will use it and enjoy it and feel that it's a space where they can go deeper, be in touch with their inner life. Over there in the background is a vegetable flower garden that I installed to complement the labyrinth. Here it is from the other side. It's not quite finished. I'll be adding other elements probably next spring, including a guest book that we hope to install at the entrance so people can come in, enjoy, use the labyrinth, enjoy it, and maybe perhaps leave a message for others. You hear the bell from the church that's in the background. That's where my wife is the pastor of Bloomfield Presbyterian Church in the Green. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little tour. I hope someday you can come by and enjoy this space. It's for everyone. A place to become a we.
And we have yet another one we're calling One in Spirit. We're looking for examples of our expanding awareness of we, our interdependence, our interbeing in our daily lives. Recently, Carlos and I watched a movie called My Octopus Teacher, where a scientist related deeply to a little octopus for over a year. It was a fascinating thing to see. One in Spirit.
And finally, we have Spirit Child. We want to hear from our youth. This is our special Kids Corner, and we welcome contributions from all of your families.
All right, folks, that's the end of this episode on Making Space. I hope it makes sense to you. I hope it encourages you. Carlos and I are delighted to have the opportunity to open up this fascinating process.
And it's great to start this 21 episode exploration. We will continue to produce them and publish them for the remainder of the year. Stay tuned. If you want to go deeper into it, we welcome you to go to the website, anewglobalwe.com, and take a look. Also, bring friends, make them aware of what's happening here. Subscribe, give us a like. That helps the YouTube channel algorithm. So thank you for coming. We will see you soon. Peace.
Peace. Take care, everyone. Thank you.